Welcome to English Mirror. Today, we deal with the essay by T.S. Eliot titled The Metaphysical Poets. It was published in 1921. The term metaphysical poets was coined by the critic Samuel Johnson to describe a loose group of 17th century English poets whose work was characterized by the inventive use of conceits and by a greater emphasis on the spoken rather than lyrical quality of their verse. These poets were not formally affiliated, and few were highly regarded until 20th century attention established their importance. The phrase metaphysical poetry has long done duty as a term of abuse or as the label of a quaint and pleasant taste. The question is to what extent the so-called metaphysicals formed a school, in our own time we should say a movement, and how far this so-called school or movement is a digression from the main current. Not only is it extremely difficult to define metaphysical poetry, but difficult to decide what poets practice it and in which of their verses. The poetry of Donne is late Elizabethan, its feeling often very close to that of Chapman. The courtly poetry is derivative from Johnson, who borrowed liberally from the Latin. It expires in the next century with the sentiment and witticism of Prior. There is finally the devotional verse of Herbert, Vaughan, and Croshaw. Croshaw, sometimes more profound and less sectarian than the others, has a quality which returns through the Elizabethan period to the early Italians. It is difficult to find any precise use of metaphor, simile, or other conceit which is common to all the poets, and at the same time important enough as an element of style to isolate these poets as a group. Donne and often Cowley employ a device which is sometimes considered characteristically metaphysical, the elaboration of a figure of speech to the farthest stage to which ingenuity can carry it. Thus Cowley develops the commonplace comparison of the world to a chessboard through long stanzas. The poem is to destiny. And then with more grace in a valediction, the comparison of two lovers to a pair of compasses. The telescoping of images and multiplied associations is characteristic of the phrase of some of the dramatists of the period which Donne knew. Not to mention Shakespeare, it is frequent in Middleton, Webster, and Turner, and is one of the sources of the vitality of their language. Johnson, who employed the term metaphysical poets, apparently having Donne, Cleveland, and Cowley chiefly in mind, remarks of them that the most heterogeneous ideas are yoked by violence together. The force of this impeachment lies in the failure of the conjunction, the fact that often the ideas are yoked but not united. And if we are to judge of styles of poetry by their abuse, enough examples may be found in Cleveland to justify Johnson's condemnation. But a degree of heterogeneity of material compelled into unity by the operation of the poet's mind is omnipresent in poetry. The exque of Bishop King, the extended comparison is used with perfect success. The idea and the simile become one in the passage in which the bishop illustrates his impatience to see his dead wife under the figure of a journey. It is to be observed that the language of these poets is as a rule simple and pure. In the verse of George Herbert, this simplicity is carried as far as it can go, a simplicity emulated without success by numerous modern poets. The structure of the sentences, on the other hand, is sometimes far from simple. But this is not a vice. It is a fidelity to thought and feeling. The effect at its best is far less artificial than that of an ode by Gray. And as this fidelity induces variety of thought and feeling, so it induces variety of music. It is certain that the dramatic verse of the later Elizabethan and early Jacobean poets expresses a degree of development of sensibility which is not found in any of the prose, good as it often is. Even if we accept also Johnson and Chapman, these two were notably erudite and were notably men who incorporated their erudition into their sensibility. Their mode of feeling was directly and freshly altered by their reading and thought. In Chapman especially, there is a direct sensuous apprehension of thought, or a recreation of thought into feeling, which is exactly what we find in Donne. It is something which had happened to the mind of England between the time of Donne or Lord Herbert of Cherbury and the time of Tennyson and Browning. It is a difference between the intellectual poet and the reflective poet. Tennyson and Browning are poets, and they think, but they do not feel their thought as immediately as the odor of a rose. A thought to Donne was an experience. It modified his sensibility. When a poet's mind is perfectly equipped for its work, it is constantly amalgamating disparate experience. The ordinary man's experience is chaotic, irregular, fragmentary. We may express the difference by the following theory. The poets of the 17th century, the successors of the dramatists of the 16th, possessed a mechanism of sensibility which could devour any kind of experience. In the 17th century, a disassociation of sensibility set in, from which we have never recovered. And this disassociation, as is natural, was aggravated by the influence of the two most powerful poets of the century, Milton and Dryden. Each of these men performs certain poetic functions so magnificently well that the magnitude of the effect concealed the absence of others. The language went on and in some respects improved. The best verse of Collins, Gray, Johnson and even Goldsmith satisfies some of our fastidious demands better than that of Donne or Marvell or King. But while the language became more refined, the feeling became more crude. The feeling, the sensibility expressed in the country churchyard is cruder than that in the coy mistress. The second effect of the influence of Milton and Dryden followed from the first and was therefore slow in manifestation. The sentimental age began early in the 18th century and continued. The poets revolted against the ratiocinative, the descriptive, they thought and felt by fits, unbalanced, they reflected. In one or two passages of Shelley's Triumph of Life, in the second Hyperion, there are traces of a struggle toward unification of sensibility. The poets in question have, like other poets, various faults, but they were at best engaged in the task of trying to find the verbal equivalent for states of mind and feeling. And this means both that they are more mature and that they were better than later poets of certainly not less literary ability. It is interesting to speculate whether it is not a misfortune that two of the greatest masters of diction in our language, Milton and Dryden, triumphed with a dazzling disregard of the soul. If we continued to produce Miltons and Drydens, it might not so much matter. But as things are, it is a pity that English poetry has remained so incomplete. Those who object to the artificiality of Milton or Dryden sometimes tell us to look into our hearts and write. One must look into the cerebral cortex, the nervous system, and the digestive tracts. May we not conclude then that Donne, Groucho, Vaughan, Herbert, and Lord Herbert, Marvell, King, Cowley at his best are in the direct current of English poetry, and that therefore should be reprimanded by the standard rather than coddled by antiquarian affection. They have been enough praised in terms which are implicit limitations because they are metaphysical or witty, quaint or obscure, though at their best they have not these attributes more than other serious poets. Thank you for watching this video.